So in this video, we're going to create an enclosure for my CNC controller board. We're going to do that from a picture of it to start with so that I can get the rough shape. We're going to make it parametric so that we can adjust it to the actual dimensions. But we're going to make it so that we have ways to get the wires out from inside and the top so that it will be a dust protector, because the most important thing is to keep the dust out of that board. So let's have a look at how we're going to do that. The first thing I want to do is to model a representation of the board. So let's start with that. We're going to go into a new file and we're going to start a new part, a new body, a new sketch. I'm going to keep it on the XY plane because that makes it nice and simple. And just so you know, I am now using, I'm going to go into the About FreeCAD. I'm now using version 0.20 and it's the Git revision number 27422. And I'll try to remember to point out those things that are new in 0.20. But the code is now frozen, so there's only bug fixes going on, and I think it's time to switch over because there are some nice new features in here that we can use. So here we go. So the first new feature, if we drop down here, we can do a centered triangle. The way to do that is you click on that center point and then you just pull out, and it basically gives you, it's the same as doing this rectangle and then selecting this point, the center point, and saying it's symmetrical around there. So you can get there in 0.19, but 0.20 gives you that extra simplicity to get there. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to put in some holes in the corners, because this has holes in the corners for fixing the board to the box. Now remember, I'm doing the board at the moment, so this is just a representation of the board. Now one thing that is interesting is how you can constrain these holes here. We can constrain them by creating some geometry with our construction lines, and it will help us to constrain it with fewer dimensions. So we're going to do that. Now I do need a dimension for, first thing I'm going to make this vertical because it didn't come in as vertical. That one did come in as horizontal, but that one didn't come in as vertical, so I'm just fixing that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to constrain these as being symmetrical around the center point. These two here, symmetrical around that center point. Beautiful. And then I need a dimension for this side, and it's actually a 4" by 5" square. So I'm going to go 4 times 25.4, and then I'm going to put a dimension on this side, and I'm going to call that 5 times 25.4, and that gives me my dimensions there. Then I need to constrain this circle, and it's actually a 4mm diameter, and I'm going to make this one and this one and this one and this one all equal. So now I have that, and then I want to lock in my dimension from here to here is going to be 10. I'm just going to move that over there just for clarity. And then I'm going to do a dimension that goes from here to here. And we're going to make that one 10 also. And there we have it. We are now constrained So that's my blank board, my PCB that all my components are stuck on. I don't know for sure that these are 10 by 10, but we have the dimensions now, so we can make that all parametric. So let's close that. Let's pad that. And it's only going to be, the board is 2 millimeters thick. And so now I have a board, and then I have some components. I'm going to show you quickly the picture that I'm working off. So this is my actual board. It is 4 inches that way, and it's 5 inches that way. So you can see where my wires coming out are mostly over here, and then just these power wires that go in here. So I'm going to mark those. I do have a USB wire going in that end too. So we'll create some pseudo connectors, just blocks that give us where those pieces are. So we're going to do that. So let's take care of that. First one is going to be a new sketch. Everything's in the XY plane. We are going to use our sectional view, and this time we just want to drop in a connector here, and the connector can be whatever size it needs to be. I think if we look on that picture, hard to tell from that, but I think it's symmetrical around this axis, so I'm going to make that symmetrical around that line. And then I can just drag it out a little bit. I think it's about there, it's fine. And we'll do it. I'll pop some dimensions on just so we know roughly how big it is. And of course, we're going to make all of this. We're going to make it all parametric. So I'm going to lock this to this part. So we got a dimension there as well. And I think what we'll do is we will draw this connector bank as well, and then this connector, and then this guy. And the heights of them are all roughly the same, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So let's draw one of those. Another box. He's going to fit in here. He goes sort of like that. And we'll give that a dimension. And we'll give that a dimension. And then we're going to create a new one down here. And we'll give that a dimension. And we'll give this one a dimension. Then we just need to dimension them. If they're not centered, which I don't think this one is, it's definitely not. And this one, no. And this one, no. Oh, bless me. This one are not centered. So we also need to move this over here. We need to draw this other box, which goes in here. I think that's sort of there. Let's give that a dimension. And we'll give that a dimension. Now, I could do all these separately if I wanted to, but they're the same height, so I'm just going to make them all one piece. And then they all need to just come off the center point. So I'm going to give it a dimension here. and I'll give it a dimension this way. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a dimension here just in case it passes the halfway line. So that would get that piece dimensioned, and then we're going to do the same thing for this one. Now we have dimensions for that. And we'll do the same for this. And a dimension for this. And now all those boxes are constrained. So I'm just going to close that. I'm going to pad that. And we're going to go, I think in their case, they're about 15 millimeters tall. Let's make them 20 tall for now. Well, not 200. 20. And that'll give me some idea where these components sit in my board. And that will help me to figure out where my box needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this part. Rename that. We're going to call that PCB. And we'll name, actually we don't need to name the body, we'll just name the part. And we're going to random color that one. So it just has a random color just so that we can tell it apart from our actual model. So now I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to create a new part and a new body. And I'm going to call this part the lower box. And my lower box needs to obviously enclose this. I know I have wires coming out the side here, and I have wires coming out the side here, wires coming out the top here, and wires coming out the top here. Okay, so now we have the basic shape. What we're going to do is we are going to create a new sketch. It's also going to be on the XY plane. And this sketch is going to be based around this guy. So I am going to do that sectional view again, and I'm going to create another centered rectangle. I love that centered rectangle. So I'm going to make it roughly the size I want it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to create the box outer from that centered rectangle. And I'm going to give it 2 dimensions, this one and this one. And of course those dimensions will be keyed off these. I'm going to put this evenly inside the box. That's how I want it to sit. And I do want there to be clearance, so that'll be good. And I'm going to just pad that. But for this one, I'm going to pad it in 2 directions. And I'm going to pad it with, we made that 20, so we're going to make this 30 high. And then I'm just going to go the thickness of the box, which I think is going to be 3 millimeters. So I'm going to make that 3 millimeters. So they're good. And if we look at it sideways and we go over here and we choose the wireframe view, we can see it sitting in there. Let's just put that in the middle. We can see it sitting in there, and now the bottom of my box is 3 millimeters lower. Now that's only the thickness of the box, but I just thought of something. I actually want to go down 10 millimeters because I want to have 7 millimeter lugs that this is sitting on, so it raises it up so I miss all the components that are on the bottom. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make this 10. And I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to go back to my regular view, as is view. So now I have a box and my thing is actually inside it. And of course I need to take out the middle part. So let's do that. We're going to create a new body. And that body is going to be a sketch. It's and be on the XY plane again. And we're going to put it back in that view so we can see everything. I'm going to do another centered rectangle. Lovely centered rectangles. And I'm going to put that here. And of course, I'm going to give it a dimension here. We'll give it a dimension here. And we'll close that. Now we're going to pad that. We're going to go back in our wireframe view so we can see what's going on. And we're going to do this in 2 dimensions. And this time we're going to make this go down 7. And we're going to make this come up through the top, doesn't matter how much. So now I have a 3mm base there. So if you look, if I switch up to left view, this distance between here and here is 3mm because that's 7, and I drop this down 10. So then I can put a 7mm lug in here, which will hold that board exactly where I want it. So that's good. I'm happy with that. Let's go into our as is view. So now we're going to do a Boolean operation. We're going to make body 1. We're going to just refresh everything. We're going to make body 1 our active body. So let's double click it so it's active. And you can tell it's active because it's bold. Then we're going to do a Boolean operation. We're going to add a body. It's going to be this body. And instead of fusing it, we're going to actually cut it. And as you can see, we now have a box with our part inside it. And if I go top and bring that into view, you can see now our PCB is sitting inside there. So now I want to draw these lugs that fit over here. Now we're going to do a sketch. I'm going to do an XY plane. And this time we're going to just do 4 circles. Sorry, I'm going to hit that first. Then I'm going to do that. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to just drop those in. Just putting them roughly in the right place, and they're all going to be exactly the same size. So they're all equal. And of course, each one needs to have a hole through it. So I'll just do that too. I'm just going to let the holes go the whole way through. That's perfectly fine. And then those ones are going to be equal. That one, that one, that one, and that one. All equal. And then we are going to give this a dimension. We're going to make that 3mm. I'm going to give this a dimension. We're going to make that one 10mm for now. And then we're going to locate them. And for these ones, now we know where these came off the outside edge here. What we might want to do is switch those holes and come off the inside. Think about that. Let's do that one. And we're going to do that one. And then we're going to do our construction lines. Just line them up the same way. So I'll do a line here, that center point. And I'll do a line here. center point. Make sure we get the right point, and that guy's vertical. And then we're going to do a line across here. Line across here. And we're going to make this line going to be of equal length. And we're going to make this one and this one are going to be symmetrical. Oh, I forgot my center point. And this one and this one are going to be symmetrical about my center point. And there, they're all in good shape. So that brings us to the end of part 1. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please leave comments below. And don't forget you can become a patron if you follow a link to our Patreon, or you can join the channel as a member. Thanks again for all your support. I'll see you in the next one.